What's up, everybody? My name is Jacob Hardison, and today, let's talk about some diffs. Alright, so now we know how to rebuild and refresh our car, and we know how to get it set up to hit the track after doing that refresh and rebuild. But let's talk about some tuning options. So today we're going to very specifically talk about diffs, what the diff oil is going to do as you go thicker or thinner, and at the end, we're going to kind of talk about when you're going to see some of those options. So to give you a general base overview of things, on an 8-scale buggy, you're going to have 3 diffs, and on all 4-wheel drive vehicles, generally you will have 3 diffs. In the front end of the vehicle, as you go to a thicker fluid, you're going to increase your on-power steering, but you're going to decrease your off-power steering. So what you're going to notice is, as we talk about this today, there's going to be give and take for each of them. So like I said, as you go thicker oil in the front diff, you're going to experience better on-power steering, and you're going to sacrifice some off-power steering. But with that thicker fluid, you are generally going to have a more stable car. Now the inverse effect happens when you go thinner in the front. A thinner front fluid is going to generally be better on a tighter track, and it's going to allow the car to have more steering off power, hence why it's a tighter track setup. Transitioning out to the center diff, as you go thicker, what you're going to experience is more acceleration out of the turn, and you're going to experience a more 4-wheel drive action, is the way I like to describe it. Some of the way that I like to describe the center diff is kind of like how you would describe a full-size car. An all-wheel drive Subaru is not going to have as good of a turning radius as a front-wheel drive Honda Civic. So as you go thicker in your center diff, it's not going to be as nimble, it's going to be more stable, and you're going to get more of that 4-wheel drive effect because it's going to evenly distribute that power better front to rear. Whereas when you go to the thinner fluid, naturally, as you accelerate the car, the front end is going to pick up a little bit, so it's going to send that power to the least resistance, which would, of course, be the front diff. So, as it gets hotter and stuff, and you go to a bigger track, you're going to want that thicker fluid. And then, as you go on to a tighter, more just quick-paced track, something similar to what our indoor track is, then you can go to the thinner fluid. If you notice that the car is just not getting out of the turn at all, it's just sounding like it's trying to go somewhere, but it's not actually going anywhere, then you may have to go thicker in your center fluid, because like I said, that is going to directly affect your acceleration. Now, as we transition to the rear diff here, as you go to a thicker fluid, same thing, it's going to be better on a higher speed track where you're not going to need the car to pivot super duper quick, whereas a thinner oil is same thing, going to get you in and out of the turn a little bit quicker, a little bit tighter per se. So you're going to use that thinner fluid mostly on those tighter indoor tracks. You're going to get more stability out of the turn. The rear wheels are going to work more together as you go to the thicker fluid, so it's going to stabilize the car a little bit more. Hence, again, why it's better on that more big open track. Whereas you get more of that off-power rotation as you go to the thinner fluid, again, better on the tighter tracks. Now, when you're going to see a lot of these is, and as I've been saying throughout the video, the bigger, more sweeping style tracks, you're going to use a thicker fluid. The smaller, tighter tracks, you're going to use a thinner fluid. Now, that's a very general overview for when you're going to see each of these. It is going to change track by track depending on temperature and grip levels, but here at Adrenaline, for example, inside, traditionally I'll run a 7,000, 7,000, and a 4,000 in my TLR buggy. And on the outdoor track, I'll usually bump it up as grip and temperature comes up. I'll try to do something more of like a 10, 10, 6, or if it gets super hot, or if I'm running my nitro car, for example, where the engine is directly next to that center diff, I will go to a slightly thicker center diff to account for that heat. Generally speaking, on those bigger tracks, it's going to be faster to use those thicker fluids because you're wanting to carry speed through everything. You're not wanting to have a lot of stop-start, whereas on those tighter tracks, it is very stop-start because it's more of tight 180s. You're trying to weave in and out of stuff significantly quicker. So generally speaking, that is the overview for differentials. Now, to kind of go back a little bit to a more newbie standpoint, a very good baseline to use is, like I said, a 774 or a 775. That's usually a really good place to start. Traditionally, you'll see that thicker rear end on a pillowball car, whereas you come out of the turn, you're gonna notice the car is gonna wanna walk a little bit more, so that thicker fluid helps to lock it in more. Whereas on the C-Hub car, it seems like generally as you go out of the turn, the rear end naturally wants to lock up a little bit more, in the sense of you can grab the throttle and where it's pointed is where it's gonna go. You're not gonna have any wishy-washy, it's just gonna be grip effectively. So you can use a thinner fluid to help get it through that turn a bit quicker, and you can even use it to help overwork the diff to where you get that little bit of extra rotation. But that is a very, very good starting point for pretty much any track, and then that'll give you a baseline to know whether you need to go thicker or thinner depending on your track conditions. And then on the outdoor track, usually I'll start with something like that 10-10-6, 10-10-5, just something a little bit more stable, something that's going to hold up to the heat a little bit better and give me a nice, good, consistent run. So that is a general setup and now a general overview of what your differential tuning is going to do. We're gonna continue this series. I'm gonna go over some more tuning stuff as we work through the weeks, and we get you guys as much information as possible. If you have any questions or you want me to go into any more detail on this, please feel free, leave it down below, and we'll see you guys next week.